All right. The mission of the St. James School District is to empower students through caring relationships, academic excellence, and community partnerships. And now we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Sharing good things. So, Dr. Johnson, do you want to talk about the email attached here?
Yes.
Okay.
But what's the special rule for Brent? Did he say do something different?
Turn the mics on.
Okay.
We'll
So-
see if one of them can get his computer hooked up.
It was so hot in that other building. Can we turn the heat on?
Yes. We should have got in here a little earlier than this. So I just wanted to brag on our elementary building. They had an outside consultant from the DCI, which is DESI, works with us on instructional improvements. And they came in and spent a day with our teachers and our principals, and they had a lot of compliments that our building is exemplar in many ways. Even during COVID, we're still putting student learning at number one, so as our number one priority. So she didn't have to do that. Her name's Madonna Pund, and she's a consultant for DCI, and we appreciate what she's doing. She works for the District Continuous Improvement Framework. So just wanted to brag on our elementary building for getting some positive feedback from an outside professional consultant.
Anybody else got some good news?
I can't get on the internet.
All right. Any statements from patrons? Shalina? Okay. The next thing we need to do is accept Carl's resignation. So once accepted, we will open it up for 2 weeks. They'll have till February 16th at 4 o'clock to submit a letter of interest. And then we will appoint someone out of those who apply. So I need a motion to accept his agenda, or accept his resignation.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so up next we have substantial completion update from Sean and Brandon. So somebody wants to get, whoever wants to speak. It's blowing.
I really can't hear it. I don't know if there's something with the mic or what, but.
Is who?
Erlen?
Okay, yeah, I had mine actually turned off. Tim, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Okay.
So what we were doing, guys, is before we did the tour just now, and there were a lot of questions being asked at the end of the tour, and so we thought, there's a chance we could get a lot of it done prior to the meeting, because since we were there. However, it's good that since 3 of you were not at the tour, it's going to be a good chance to ask all the questions so that we can know about timelines, substantial completion, And then all the, when will, the question that we keep getting is when will kids be able to be in the classrooms and student learning taking place? But we got to do that with a lot of factors, safety being one of them. And so there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and we have all the right people in the room. So I think it's time to continue where we were at just a few minutes ago. And for Branco or Dake Wells, if you're speaking, since this is live streamed, we have a microphone there, so we'd like you to share that. Don't breathe on it because we don't want to spread the COVID. So there you go. So John, I think you were asking questions last. What
Well, do we want to kind of catch Lena and Tim up?
Yes.
We need to talk about the 3 things and what it looks like up until that point, and then we can continue.
So,
Okay, so
Go ahead.
3 things you've got. You've got
Mike. Is it on?
Okay, so the 3 things you have are fire doors that are on order, that were switched out from an overhead door. You've got a fire alarm test, which is scheduled for tomorrow at 2. Stop me if I'm wrong. City inspectors will be here for that test, and you have an elevator inspection that's required by the state of Missouri for you guys to operate that elevator. 2 inspections will happen tomorrow. The fire doors are supposed, those were ordered by Sammy. They're supposed to be here a week after next. According to the latest update Eric got, we'll be on him to install them immediately. If he doesn't, we will. And then you're at the mercy of the state on the elevator inspection.
Okay, so we were talking a little bit about substantial completion and how that was broken up into 3 sections. And Brandon, would you like to talk a little bit about that so that we can have that on record?
Okay, so those of you that are not familiar with substantial completion, I feel like I should define it for you so you know, and we're all on the same page. So the contract says that substantial completion is at the point where the spaces are done enough for you to use for their intended purposes. To us, that means everything is installed once. If we come into a space and a door isn't installed or the floor isn't installed, we say this is not substantially complete. The owner can't move in and use it for its intended purpose, so we don't want to punch it, right? A punch list then, after everything is installed once, not everything's perfect. Maybe there's scratches on the wall and paint needs to be touched up, or doors need to be fixed, whatever, hardware needs to be adjusted. We will put those on a punch list and we will issue a certificate of substantial completion, which means we deem this space done enough for you all to use it for its intended purposes, but these are the things that the contractor still needs to take care of before they are finally complete and can walk away from this room. So we talked about breaking the substantial completion into 3 areas. The gym that was inserted into the courtyard with the adjoining locker rooms. The classrooms, 1st story and 2nd floor classrooms in the old building, that's 2. And then the atrium, auditorium, and band room as 3. The problem for us is the classrooms may be done enough for you to use for their intended purposes, but if the atrium isn't, and that is the means of egress out of those classrooms, then it's hard for us to say you can use those classrooms for their intended purposes because the atrium isn't done. So that has then caused a little rub, and the city has gotten involved, and the city has agreed that all of the life safety issues have to be taken care of in the atrium for you all to use those classrooms. So even though we're trying to break it into 3, to us it's really still 2, because the atrium needs to be done for you to use those classrooms, in our opinion. Now again, I want to emphasize that if you and the city can deem that it is acceptable, they're going to have an authority that we don't have. We have to abide by our state license, and there is no state code, so we picked the code, IBC code, that we then drew everything to and we abide by. And your code official here in St. James is also bound by that same code. So we have talked to them and we're on the same page, I believe. And so although we've talked about 3 areas, we deem it as 2, so we're kind of withholding that classroom substantial completion to figure out what we're gonna do with the atrium. If you guys were dead set on using the classrooms, then we would just have to go about finding a safe way out for the kids that can still meet code.
Okay, back up a minute. So,
Mike.
we've got 2 different things going on here. We don't wanna confuse.
Okay.
Life safety's taken care of tomorrow, period, if that inspection passes.
No, because you don't have the fire doors installed in the restrooms, and that is a firewall, so that is still a life safety issue.
So, by all rights, they could throw up a temporary 2-layer sheetrock wall in that opening.
Well, firewall's 2 hours, so it'd be 4, but yes.
Whatever.
But you
So
can do a
that-
temporary wall and close those off, and they could use it, correct?
So regardless, tomorrow, life safety could be taken care of. Your main hang-up at that point after tomorrow is the elevator. Explain that.
Okay, so the elevator is an ADA accessibility issue, isn't life safety. If you have, you as a public entity need to provide accessible spaces to all your constituents. If there is a child that is here in a wheelchair and they cannot get to the 2nd floor, you would need to make sure that whatever classes they were in was offered on a level they could get to. You could move in without that elevator complete, as long as you had those things dealt with. But if someone breaks their leg and they come in crutches and they can't get up the steps for whatever reason, and you didn't anticipate that, and then their mom or dad was, bent on trying to sue the school for something, you could be on the hook. And so we also would not recommend that you use the space without the elevator complete, but you could choose to do that as well, and you'd have to make sure that you got everyone accessible spaces.
And it has to be something that's not offered on the ground floor. So if you have somebody with a broken leg that can have the same class downstairs as they do upstairs, then it's not an issue.
But if all your science labs are upstairs,
That's what I'm saying.
they can.
So if you have somebody break their leg in the science room, I mean, we can if it to death all day. But anyway, at the end of the day, after tomorrow, life safety will be over with. It's an elevator issue.
So when you say at the mercy of the state, do we have any reasonable expectation of when they will be here?
We do not.
But the understanding is we're gonna we'll call Jason Chipman and we'll call every person that touches our school district at the state level to the point where they don't answer our calls anymore, correct?
Yeah, I'll try anything if that'll work. So we'll see.
I mean, no offense to any business owner or anybody out there, any hotel, which is, I'm sure, who we're most likely waiting on. I mean, school is, in my opinion, should be somebody that goes to the front of the line.
You know, how many elevators are being installed daily? Is it thousands? Is it hundreds? You know?
Well, it's not just
It's
installed.
inspections.
Yeah, they're
The
inspecting
inspections.
as well.
Because they've
right.
got, it's first.
So they're all out there then.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's no priority for a first time.
Okay, just for argument's sake, if the elevator's inspection goes through next week, is there any reason that, I guess how I want to say this, if our kids go in their classroom, are we done with construction? Are they going to be interrupted by something with construction? I know that the auditorium's not done, but is the atrium done so that which it's not at this point, correct?
What's not done in the atrium besides the fire?
Work around the elevator door
Right.
appears to not be done. You have a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. You have work in the band room ceiling that isn't done, that's gonna have to have.
They can go in and out the front door.
I don't know how, I don't know how your sequencing is gonna work. I'm just saying there is work outside of the atrium, or outside of the auditorium that you will need the atrium for. So I don't know.
Yeah, they can
all
come in
of
through the front doors, I mean.
Anyway, the classroom stuff, I don't know what the status, I haven't heard an update on the casework guy, but he's worked work nights and weekends, I believe.
Okay, you mentioned a while ago the completion date where you guys pack up your stuff and take your trailers and leave. Do we have an actual date for that?
Once the punch list is done.
Oh, no.
Well,
I mean,
they're, you guys just have that list, then they can work on that, so they've got. And remind all the subcontractors that their 30 days are up on, rapidly approaching, if it's not already up, get your stuff done.
okay, so the other conversation we were having out there is our timetable for the maintenance crew. What, you get these turned over, you say you can have the floors done in a week. That's not moving desk in and setting up TVs and getting everything the kids need there. What does that look
Yeah,
like?
so to me, that's once they're done and out of here, then I at least need a week to get furniture that needs moved, the kids are using right now today in class. We could move one every night, or something, we could work around that however you need to, but first things first, construction needs to be done. I need approximately a week to get the building ready, and then furniture just going to be however classes can function and we move them. So
You put together a bid of what it would cost, whether it's hiring an outside firm to come in to move stuff all in one whack, or what it would cost to pay overtime to your crew. Can
yeah,
you
I mean,
put that
I think
together?
in a good hard weekend, if we were, my staff, if I could rally the troops, a good hard weekend of work would probably do it, I would assume, because we already have moved the extra furniture that we did
So
have. So
when
it's
you
really
say a
just the
good-
classes.
When you say a good hard weekend, are we talking 6 people paying 15 hours of overtime to, or are we talking 3 people paying 7 hours of overtime?
I'm talking probably 6 to 8 people, 2 8-hour shifts
Okay.
would
All of which would be overtime at that point.
yes, it would have to be,
So
yes.
your exposure would be the 8 times.
Yes.
We do have a PD day coming up in February too. I'm trying to find the calendar right now, but that would give us
Yeah,
a
a
3-day
good
weekend.
PD day would work.
So-
Any
That could be a legitimate.
What about the technology side? Hold on. Sorry, what, Tim?
I was just gonna ask Dr. Johnson, I know we don't wanna ever look at this, but would it be possible to do like a virtual week, just 1 week, where we didn't have any kids in school, they had to do it from home?
That would,
Allow it
if we did that, we would have to make that,
to teachers and everything, but
we would have to make that up, Tim, at the end of the year.
We'd have to make it up at the end of the year.
Because that would not be weather or COVID related. That'd be construction related. I mean, we could do that, but I don't know if we want to do that.
Well, it's kind of like Wes talking about having kids move things. I mean, our kids are only here 2 days a week.
Yes.
Their instruction time is important. They shouldn't be carrying desk or taking, to me, that's my,
What about the technology side, Wes? I think it was either last board meeting or the board meeting before, we had talked about possibly looking at outsourcing some of that, or what it was going to take to get these classrooms ready.
Let me get Josh Carroll. He's right in the other room.
So while he's on his way in here, we do have a PD day on the 12th, and then the 15th we don't have school, so that could potentially give us a 4-day weekend.
Which would probably work. This is Cameron. He can ask that question again.
Yeah, sorry, what was the question?
It was either last board meeting or the one before, we had talked about either outsourcing the implementation of technology to speed up that process, or trying to get you guys in there quicker. If we try to take that on ourselves, what is a realistic timeline for you to have everything installed to where every single classroom is up and running the way it should be?
Realistically, as soon as if construction is done, a day tops. Like we are really close now. At most we have like displays of some kind for them to project onto TVs, whatever that may be, in order for them to have instruction in the classroom. Otherwise, we're pretty much done.
Okay.
The internet is all up over there. They got all that.
Right. Yeah, that was my understanding, but and it's been a long time since I've been in school, but when I was there, it was a projector. You wheeled it in, you put stuff on it. Now it is so technology driven that, well, Barb's laughing. It was her class I'm thinking of. It's her class I'm thinking
I was
of.
gonna say, we had slaves.
Yeah. But the thought there is, you know, if we tried to go back to projectors, it doesn't work. So what's it going to take to get the smart TVs and everything that we have planned for this up and going? And if it's a day, awesome. That's the answer I was looking for.
So looking at February 12th and February 15th, I know this elevator is our hangup. We have no idea when they're going to show up. Other than the elevator, everything except for like the punch items that they'll do on nights and weekends will be completed. That's not going to be an issue in any way, shape, or form.
For the auditorium.
The auditorium will be wrapped up before the end of the month.
Really, the main thing we're doing on the auditorium is some lights for the
That's on
stairs.
us. That's we do those.
Yeah, and the lights for the stairs were ordered after the fact, and
They're still supposed to be here like the 15th of February. So.
Can you just walk with the mic?
I was just going to ask about, there's some work that has to be done in the ceiling of the band room. So how long will that take in the big scheme of things? So that if we're talking about everything but the auditorium, I want to make sure that we're including the work in the band room.
I'm gonna have, if that's the decision, which I just found out that was the decision today.
Is that the final decision? I mean, are we,
I don't know what.
Who decided?
Oh, I thought that's what I was told.
no, that's. I mentioned it to Merlin earlier, and he said that's.
So I can explain what it is. Okay. So in the band room, it's under some classrooms. And so above the lay-in ceiling, there should be a sheetrock ceiling that's a couple layers and basically will help block the sound from below it. That got missed and wasn't installed. And so Branco is recommending an alternative solution to put mineral wool on top of the lay-in ceiling tile. However, it doesn't meet the same SDC rating, which is what stops the sound from going up, as what we had called out in the drawings. So as we're talking about time frame, if we decide that the sheetrock ceiling needs to go in, the lay-in ceiling would need to come down, and then that would need to go up. So
I thought we needed to get this right. This first, I mean, even if that's a little bit of a delay, and I know it's inconvenience, it was a miss on the subcontractor's part, and we don't want the noise going up to the classrooms above. So if it's going to
that
help.
goes back to my original deal. When I get out of here, now that I found out that that's the direction that they're going, I'm going to call the subcontractor that's responsible for that and tell them.
Yes, and I just found out about that at like 11:30 today. So.
And there's more areas than just the band room, am I correct? That needs to go in.
Practice room.
under the seating.
Okay, so I just,
So that's taken care of. It sounds
yeah, so I know we're kind of in the weeds here, but I'm just saying, for them to think everything is done except these 3 items, there are still some things that need to be taken care of.
But we'll be completed by the end of the month.
That's not my decision.
What I just said. With the exception of things that are on order that were added late in the project. So,
And that includes,
wasn't late in the project, though.
no, that's why I said they're gonna, when I get out of here, I will make it very clear to him that I want it done by the end of the month.
and does that include the millwork guy by the end of the month? I mean, I know you.
All I
know
knew
that,
is-
But her question, and I want to be factual, is everything else done? I don't know about the millwork. Do you?
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of loose ends. We've got millwork, we've got some trim that Sammy's got to put on, we've got doors and hardware stuff with Sammy, we've got some sheetrock repairs, we've got the painter, but
And that's just on my interior, because there's still some exterior.
that's what I was talking about with Sammy.
Okay, yeah.
So, regardless, everybody was told the 31st is the date, period. I don't care whether you live here, I don't care if you live in the school. You're supposed to be done.
Got anything else?
Taking it in.
I know how to say this. I want it to be done by the 31st, but I want it to be done right. I mean, I don't want the subcontractors to think, or anybody, to think, oh my gosh, I've got to have this done. Let's just get it up there. I want it to be done right, you know. So, and I know you have to talk to the subcontractors on that. But
Right.
I personally do not want our kids moving in unless it is finished, because I think it just becomes a nightmare of a thought. Even if it puts us off a week, you know, we're this far into it. I'm not sure a week is going to make that much difference, but I would like to have it completely done.
I agree with you, Barb. At this point, we've waited this long. We all wanted to be in there last semester. We all thought that at one point. It didn't happen. There's unforeseen circumstances. And the board and our community has been very patient. But there have been things that, you know, just it happens. And you guys, I feel like there's been tremendous progress over the last 2 months. And to rush it, and I think what Barb's saying is possibly even those contractors not putting that layer in there, is that a potential they were trying to rush and they just didn't read the plans right and they just did it quickly and didn't do it right? So those are things we don't want to get missed if we continue to push. We want it to be done, but we understand we don't want it to be subpar. We want it to be ready for our kids, and that's what they deserve.
But our story is going to, and we appreciate that, we do, but our story is going to be the 31st. And
I would agree with that.
And done right.
because
I mean, that's what we pay you guys for, is for it to be done right. On time. So I agree. 100%.
No extensions. No
Yeah.
extensions.
Right.
Because that's the message we don't want right there.
Zero. Because right now I've already got some locals reaching out to different people here locally saying, oh, well, I can't be done. It'll be okay. No, it won't be okay. You're in the same boat as the rest of us.
When did you order the inspection on the elevator, if you don't mind me asking? Do you know?
When they left, that would have been probably going on 3 weeks. I'd have to get you an exact date, but that's close
If you
enough.
wouldn't mind, will you get that to Merlin?
You bet.
I think when they left was probably 2 weeks, I would say.
It was a Sunday.
Because it bled into the next week
It was
after
the
that.
first full
Yeah.
week.
Anyway,
that's right.
couple weeks.
Yep.
So we'll get the exact date.
Thank you. I'm gonna blow up every politician I know until we get somebody here.
There you go.
Okay, is there anything else you guys want to say? Any more questions?
Any comments that you have that we need to know? Because we're getting close. And that's, I think for my part, I've been, you know, I communicate with the community through my weekly articles and things like that. Go on the radio. I've been very optimistic and positive, and I think the message is right now is that we're there. We're close. We're going to have kids in that building. I know a lot of people are skeptical, and they're going to be learning. Teachers are going to be teaching very soon. And so, yes, we would like it have been done much earlier, but this is where we're at right now, and we want it to be done right. We have a date, and Branco says they're going to have it done, and that's where we're going to stick to at this point. So, and then Wes is going to get everything else done and ready.
I do want to say where we're at and what's done is pretty awesome, and I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate the work that's gone into it. What you guys have done product-wise looks awesome on the outside, so I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you. You guys have kind of been lucky with your project because you started before COVID. You were touched by COVID some, with some delays and some expenses, and we were able to shift people around, and you guys have had a lot of people that were working on this project were gone for COVID, that were actually sick. So we had, just in Branco alone, had 4 that are on this project that had to go home. So we just moved people and got everybody situated around, but the material deal, and of course if you were starting a project now, this project could be about 20% more than what you're paying right now. So, and they're just going to keep going up. So you were kind of lucky you got in. I know it was more than you wanted to spend in the original, but it's a lot less than you're going to spend in the future.
Thank you, John, for those comments. I appreciate that too, because we're proud of the project. We think it's gonna be awesome. We think it is awesome. So we have really, what do I want to say? positive thoughts about this project, but I know here at the end it's been kind of tense because you guys want to get in it, and we totally get that. But when it's done and you guys are in, we hope that you guys are ecstatic and that you're super pleased with it, because we know we are. So.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Thanks for taking us on a tour.
All right.
Thank you,
Need
guys.
more bass, let me know.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Next up, we have Josh Cahill with a grants update.
It's different. It's new. So, in the era of COVID, things get expensive, right? We had to do a bunch of different stuff. So, just for a quick recap, when the first CARES money came out, there was CARES money that came directly to the school through the tiered monitoring system. There's also been what we call county CARES money that was managed through MRPC, and you could apply to each of the counties for additional funds for COVID grant money. So we got our first 3 applications totaling over $200,000 through county CARES. We've been working for some time. They actually stopped accepting applications and looking at applications at counties because they started to reserve funds for businesses, because when it started to spike in this area, they wanted to make sure that they had enough money, right? Because they provided masks to all the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. Well, Phelps County actually carried a balance. So they are actually waiting for permission to spend that balance. And we were able to actually submit something for about $60,000 worth that is sitting there waiting. If they actually are approved to spend that money, we should be able to have our other additional $60,000 approved in funds as well. So a couple other things. We have transportation. There's some grant money that came down that way. Masks, sprayers, that kind of thing. We have some match money for technology. That was through a Greer's grant program through the governor. And we were able to use that for technology that went into the construction. So a lot of that was actually 50-50 match money, which means we paid 50%. So I also wrote a grant for curriculum for the computing vocational course. Obviously, I'm involved with that. And we also have 2 grants that are in process through the state auditor's office. And what those are for is for actually archiving historical records that we must keep, and actually a process to help us digitize moving forward. So we're trying to take advantage of that because it used to be match money. This year, they're actually offering it not as match money. It's straight up. We just have to make sure that we get the method that we need for us into the grant to get that pushed through. One last thing, this is coming up, and it was kind of last minute. For that, I apologize. The Vocational Enhancement Grant. So what the Vocational Enhancement Grant is for is monies provided to support the vocational and practical arts. And it's match money, and depending on what criteria the ask is from, there's a different match for it. So we didn't know if we were going to have anything for it this year, but we didn't want to miss out on that because there was actually rumors that it wouldn't be available. However, it is available, so we want to make sure and get that in and get that approved with you guys because it requires match money. So
the Vocational Enhancement Grant has no attachment on mine. He's discussing now. Do we have an attachment for that?
No worries. No. So yeah, it was today that they all came through. We were actually waiting for the last quote that we got yesterday because you'll see the skid steer package. As you can see that the price amount on it would be $60,000.
which 75% of that would be paid through the grant. The other 25% we'd have to have as match. Now, that is a rather large item and requires bidding. So that's why we actually had to have 3 quotes in there and wanted to make sure that that was all together and you guys were able to get that all at once. So, okay. So Heritage Tractor, one of the ones that most looks that we were looking to recommend would be the one from GAR, as they're a New Holland dealer, and but we're looking around 60 grand. However, this is also the best buy for us because the ag department has curriculum for a skid steer. They just don't have a skid steer. Also, there are a couple limitations with the forklift. The forklift is great on the pavement and on concrete. If it's in gravel or on ground, it is not good to load because when you start to pick it up, it actually spins because of the way the wheels are. So the skid steer will take care of that.
How much is the forklift worth?
I don't know how much the forklift is worth. I'm sorry.
That's
Right.
for the skid loader.
Right. I think the one that we were looking at was 59,000, and that's why I put in 60,000 for the approve.
So you get rid of if you get a skid loader, and yes, I'm probably going to harp on this one the most because it's the highest cost. How much is that? I mean, so we get reimbursed 45,000. Is that forklift worth 15? Is that forklift worth 10?
I don't know. We'd have to ask Wes. I would assume it's less than that.
Because you can get rid of it. I mean, the skid loader is going to do
I
anything
bought
we
the
want it to do.
The forklift, I bought it at surplus for $3,500
Okay.
5 years ago.
Perfect.
So
So it's worth $1,000.
probably.
Okay.
But that being said, not only would it fit the VOAG curriculum, it would also fit all the industrial side of stuff that for school needs. That the tractor does just not have the horsepower to do.
How often would they use a skid loader?
As the school, as a district,
As the
or as the curriculum?
Let's do both.
Okay, so we're talking the majority of the week. So the skid steer can be used in any weather, and you can also actually bring it in and use it inside the classroom. So the curriculum that they have, they would basically have an entire course dedicated to the skid steer.
I guess I'm
Does
confused.
that answer your question?
No.
So it'd be used almost daily.
Why?
Why not? How many people around here do you see doing skid steer work?
So RTI and all these guys don't offer that we're sending our kids to already. They don't offer a skid steer class or a heavy equipment operation class.
There is a heavy equipment operation class. I don't know if it actually entails a skid steer.
I would think it would. So here's my thoughts. So if they need a skid loader and they need it once a week, what's the cost to rent a skid loader once a week? And if they're going to use it daily, and that's truly a class that I've never heard of at any other school, that's pretty awesome that we have the ability to offer it through a grant. But I've just never heard of it. All of our kids have been going to RTI, whether it's for, any other vocational deal. What's our next purchase? Is our next purchase going to be something else so we don't have to send kids to RTI on that? I just feel like there's not enough information.
So let me
there.
get clarity. Is the question, are we taking away students that we would normally send to RTI to keep them locally?
Yes.
Is that the question? I don't believe we are. I think most of what you're looking at and the options and capabilities that they're going to have, if you're actually looking for an active practical arts group doing the floriculture, doing the ag construction, they're actually going to start needing some of that equipment. So the problem is we have it and we learn about it, but we haven't necessarily been able to do it.
Do we have somebody certified and qualified to teach this class and to operate the skid loader?
Mr. Davis.
He is certified.
I don't know that he is certified, but I know that he has the experience required because he has the hours on the equipment.
Perfect. Okay, that's all of my questions.
So the other two items on there, one is software. It's a 50-50 match. It benefits several courses. And when you actually look at that price, what is odd is it's actually cheaper to do the entire high school than just the number of kids in the courses that need it. So that's the Adobe one. There is no other vendor for it. The title? There is no quote for that. It is, you can only get it from them. It's a set price. So yeah, there is no quote worked up, but that has been what it has been historically and currently. The third piece is the 3,300, and that is actually increasing the early childhood childcare portion. This is the baby trainers, the infant pieces, the car seats, and it's also 75-25.
So why is the software only a 50% reimbursement? Did I miss that?
That's the way the state sets it. So every category has a different match amount. The first and third, the skid steer package and the early childhood package, are both considered instructional equipment.
Okay.
And that category is a 75-25. Adobe, the software, is considered an other software or tools category, and that actually comes in at a 50-50 match. So it's just the preset rate for the category it falls in.
For that final doctor, the final section, there's three things.
Yep.
There's an estimated amount for a skid steer, there's the Adobe software, then there's the infant instructional equipment.
I didn't see the GAR quote. I saw Heritage and I saw Wade's. There was actually two Heritages, I believe.
Oh, then that's probably my fault.
Okay. But you're telling us GAR is 60, which would be the cheapest, and
Yeah, it's 59 and change. So it's actually under 60.
that's a New Holland brand new. What size is it? In case I need to borrow it. Things like that.
I can have, I'll email you the quote.
No, that's
It has
fine.
the information on it.
I just want to, we're comparing apples to apples,
And I
right?
also want you to know, each of the three packages for the skid steer, the way it works is it's actually a collective. So it's a box blade. It's several implements that go along with the skid steer, not just the skid steer itself. It's just, it has to be a package for it to be one item.
And we're comparing apples to apples, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We didn't ask for just one implement from one guy and 12 from another.
But I mean,
It's
same
all the
size
same.
skid loader, same everything.
Same horsepower,
Perfect.
same type of implements. So what you're looking at is it's roughly $15,000 ask from the school on the first item, which we get $60,000 worth of equipment. The second one is a $2,500 ask from the school, and we get $5,000 worth of software. And the third, I can't even do the math in my head, 25% of 3,360. So the ask is under $1,000. So what you're looking at total is under $20,000, and you're getting
What's the difference between if we went
almost
with,
70,000 worth of equipment.
what if we went with tires versus track loader?
What do you mean tires? Well, that's one of the reasons why you're not wanting to go with the tires on the forklift, is because when you get off solid ground, the tires become more of a problem. So when you're actually picking up with the front end and actually utilizing some of the power of the skid steer, if you don't have tracks on gravel or on actual loose ground, it's a bad situation.
So with have we looked into what this is going to do for our liability insurance? Because when I think about teenage boys being on a piece of equipment, I mean, I hear you know, grown men that drive these things every day say how quickly something, you know, they don't see something and something happens.
I worry
I
about
know
that
that-
with our welding class too. Yeah.
That's another really
Yeah.
great example.
It's it puts us in the same category because we're already using the tractor and several other things. So unless there's a significantly higher horsepower liability section that I have not seen, we should be at the same risk level.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, do you have any?
Anytime we're spending money, we got to think about how it's impacting student learning. And I think, when you go back in the history of our schools and the vocational enhancement grant, that we've been higher than this amount for, like when we did the greenhouse was more. And the greenhouse, I think, is a great thing for kids to learn. So we can utilize it more even. I think we could. And with the tractor, I think every school I've visited or worked at, if they had a very good ag department, they have a nice tractor for the kids to use. And this did come up quickly. I didn't have this happened in the last couple days, right? So I didn't give so the board didn't have a lot of warning on this, Josh. So.
The board had virtually no warning, and that is my fault. But the thing I wanted to push for is we actually have to submit paperwork to the state in February. And so when there was actually still money and they said it was still going to be offered, we started to take advantage of that at the very beginning of January and to actually make sure that all the quotes were the way they needed to be to get you guys something that actually is something we could have approved. Took longer than I had anticipated.
And if it's not approved, we won't do it.
If it's not approved, and you can nix
Any
item by item.
Any idea
Any
what
item
the
you can
warranty is on it?
I do not know about the warranty.
I'd be interested. So I'm all for all of them. Just to give you a heads up, you've got my vote there. But I'm interested to hear what the annual cost on average is for a skid loader that's used that much, or that little when you compare it to other things. And Wes, you may have a better idea of what a cost of maintaining a skid loader is. Those are the things I think of are the annual recurring costs that we're not taking into consideration with grant funds.
No, absolutely. As with any piece of equipment that's not consumable, equipment normally has maintenance and some type of support, especially if you're using a piece of equipment that much for all the varied tasks that I imagine that it'll be doing. So I can work with Wes and Tim to give you a better idea of what that would look like.
Now, I know this is going to shock everybody. I don't know anything about tractors, but but anytime we can get something educationally at a 75-25 break, with a grant, I really think we need to look seriously into it. I know that's the reason we got the greenhouse, or we would never have had that. And
Right.
So I trust your knowledge and Tim Davis's knowledge on this, and Wes. I think this is probably a good thing. And then, of course, with Amy and AJ, now one's just 50%, right?
Right.
But the other's 75-25.
Correct.
So I think it's a fairly good idea that we do this.
Yeah, the other two line items are rather small. It's the skid steer that's a big ask, but it's actually relatively a smaller ask amount total for match money than we've done previously. And for the school to have unlimited access for around $15,000 to a skid steer, plus maintenance, as you've alluded to, is a great opportunity.
I'd just tell Scott and Wes we want it thrown in for the first 3 years, see what they say.
Maintenance? It is. So I don't know what that looks like.
Okay.
Do you need a motion, or how does this work?
No, we do that.
So that's in
Perfect.
We just
the
need to-
consent agenda.
Nobody else has any more questions, concerns? Nothing? Okay, thank you, Josh. Now we need Coach West to present the A+ program.
So he texted me a minute ago. He's in the office with a student and a parent at the moment. So he graciously asked if I could cover this for him. So I've had about 2 minutes to take a look over it. I do know that percentage-wise, we have 78.5 of our seniors that are currently using A+ or plan on using A+ in the future. So obviously that does affect a good chunk of our children. Within that, you can see down further the $181 per credit hour, or the $4.80 per clock hour of classes that covers. So A+, most of you are familiar with A+. It's a big deal and a great resource for our children. Obviously, there's some roadblocks set into place with COVID. They're keeping kids from being able to meet their standard on testing, meet their hours getting in, and mentor hours and or attendance requirements. The state realizes that, because that's not just a St. James issue, that's a United States issue right now. So he did go, you can see the next couple of pages of documents are what he found from DESE, that they're making exceptions to the rules. So essentially, if you have a kid that was meeting the criteria prior to COVID, they will not be punished for anything that's happened since COVID. So if a kid doesn't reach those hours and it's because of COVID, the state's not going to punish any kids, and they're going to get A+. Essentially, that's what all of this does say. I'd heard that before, so I don't know the ands of every single thing on here, because I wasn't prepared to give this presentation to you guys, but I do know in conversations I've seen through DESE, they're not going to hold kids to against
They're
it.
doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
All right, next up, does anybody have any questions on that? No. Okay. Time and task analysis from our counselors.
All right, is that better? Awesome. So I'm Danielle Baldwin. I'm the college advisor, and like Nikki was saying, I'm working on scholarships right now with students. That's kind of my big emphasis. So a lot of our local scholarships have just gone live. They're now available for students to fill out. I know in the past couple years we've had a little bit of issue with numbers going up, especially last year because we were virtual, and that was an issue to get students to fill out applications. So now I'm here 2 days a week because of the hybrid schedule from Mizzou. And working with students, going into the classrooms, making them fill out applications. We use Canvas a lot for this as well, so that our virtual students have the same opportunity. And then for FAFSA completion, the FAFSA priority deadline is February 1st. So if any of you know students who are in college, tell them to fill it out now. They need to get that in every year. But for our students, we actually have a new tool through MDHE called the FAFSA Completion Project. So we can log in and actually look and see who's completed their FAFSAs from our school, which is really, really wonderful. And then as far as other things, we're just finalizing senior plans, meeting with seniors, making sure they have a plan of what they're going to do next. So yeah, thank you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Oh, turn it off.
Hello, I'm Sarah Baker. I brought Mookie to the first board meeting, and so I figured you would like to meet. Or I brought Yoshi. This is Mookie. Sorry, I'm nervous. The middle school is awesome. We're super happy there. A couple of the highlights from this list we wanted to point out were our groups. We've had a few student groups that at first we met 3 times a week and then hybrid, and it's kind of dwindled to 1. But we implemented faculty groups for the first time ever, and that's been a huge success. That's been meeting once a week after school since the end of August, and it's just picking up more and more participation. So that's going really well.
I'll hurdle the dog. Hold on. Hi, I'm Jillian Dottam. I met some of you before. I was just kind of looking through the list and looking for things that might not be self-explanatory to you guys. One thing that both Sarah and I are a part of, DESE started a social emotional crisis task force, and basically what that is they have 9 regions throughout the state, and we are part of the group that's basically trying to get resources together for schools and basically just trying to see what works for the social emotional part, since that's become a much bigger thing. So Sarah and I meet with people throughout the state once a month and work on resources and how we can best help our kids. So there's a lot of other things on this list, but those are the 2 things that we really wanted to highlight, mostly because the groups have been so successful and the task force wasn't really self-explanatory. So if there's anything else on there that you guys have questions about, we're more than happy to answer questions. So and then if you have any questions about the elementary, both of those guys were in the classroom all day. So if you have questions for them, we can attempt to answer, but can't say that we'll be super accurate. So any questions?
Anybody got anything?
Well,
thank you,
Barb,
ladies.
Barb have anything? Is Barb listening in?
Yeah.
Hi, Barb.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Yoshi and Mookie are the 2 of them. Okay, next up we have the academic calendar. Dr. J, you want to take that over?
Yes, so I originally had told you I thought we were going to delay calendar approval because we didn't know if the statute would be lifted that the legislators passed last year for a delayed start time. The reason for that is for tourism in the state of Missouri. And so about 2 weeks ago, DESE communicated to us that that is not going to happen, and so that the calendar late start date is still in effect, and unless there's some sort of emergency order from the governor, that's not going to change. So I decided to go ahead and go have something ready to approve. We did poll the parents and the staff, and overwhelmingly the feedback came back. You know, obviously there were some people that don't like the present calendar, but the overwhelming feedback was that the calendar should remain the same. And talking to staff members about it, and even parents, we really don't have any data to support either way, if it was a good calendar or a bad calendar. So why don't we give it another chance, one more year, and see how this works for next year. So the only there's slight changes on the PD days. We did try to coordinate a little better with Rolla this year with PD days, Mondays instead of Fridays on just a few of those, I think 3 PD days that we would coordinate with them. But other than that, the hours are there, and we'll have enough that even if we miss for snow, we don't have to make up any days. They're all forgiven. So just like this year. That's it on that. Any questions for the calendar? All right.
All right, consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
That includes the enhancement grant and the calendar and the consent.
Barb motion, Shalina second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, discussion topics. We have staff needs per building. And so I guess we need a principal or all the principals.
Yeah, I think all the principals could come in. Then you'll have a little bit at the end. Hey, Dan, how's it going? So I communicated about your building needs assessment with facility needs and then anticipated staffing changes for next year. So.
Use the
Microphone right here.
You betcha. First off, in the elementary, just wanted to thank you guys for the preschool because that was the top of our needs list last year, and you guys took care of that. And really enjoying that building. Exactly. Yeah, it was easy, I guess, easier than the other one. So the thing as far as facility need right now, and I think you guys are already working on it, is the roof repairs. So that's we don't have problems unless it rains most of the time, so not a big deal. As far as staffing needs, Mr. Conway is going to be retiring, and then we have an attendance secretary is going to retire, so we're going to be trying to fill those positions. So that'd be the ISS room and then attendance secretary. I've been working on trying to figure out what our numbers are for kindergarten. We're estimating right now we have about 86 total suspected kindergartners, and then we'll usually get another 15 or 20 by the time fall rolls around for screening. And then we're also trying to make guesstimates on what preschool will look like. We have this year with replacing one teacher who passed away, we made a change there as far as we hired somebody, but we did it on a short term so that we could have flexibility to meet the needs of whatever we come up with for numbers. So, and then our resource rooms, that was a big change that we made last year to kind of solidify our needs for the special education students. And looking like it's going to be about the same thing this year. We'll need to keep those 2 resource rooms going, and that's been working out, giving them flexibility to cover each other so everybody has everything covered along the way. The speech department is one that we kind of are keeping an eye on because there's a regulation change coming, but it's not until next year. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that one and then working on, the staffing as we need to. So there's possibility we'll need to put those implementers back in classrooms, so we're trying to keep that focus. And then the last thing we have, or I can recall, is gifted. It's looking like 37 students in gifted. Our first grade class this year has had a lot of them testing in that category, so we're really picking up steam in that area. So excited about our gifted program. I told our gifted instructor we might have to let her have one of our bigger rooms. She might be reaching capacity there, so we'll see what we need to do and go from there. Do you have any questions? All right. Your turn. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Facility, not much there with everything that's taking place. A lot of that's going to be taken care of. However, I do think one thing that's been on the radar and is going to continue to be on the radar is the cafeteria. The size, it's just not adequate. So, there are some options down the road, I think, but it'll be something that need to be addressed at some point. Our numbers will get bigger for a while, but then they'll start going back down. But before we started getting bigger, it was packed. It was jam-packed. So that's something to keep in mind. Then there's just a few minor things that whoever takes my place, I think we'll need to look at and address, and that's the composites. We're running out of space for those, but we had an idea that we've been working on with Interstate that to make it digital that I think would be a definite possibility. But, you know, whoever takes my spot, they may have some better ideas, and that'll be something to look at. And then for ELA, you know, that's every one of our departments has 4 people in it, but ELA is the only subject area that still requires 4 credits. And with our numbers growing, I do think there's a way to help manage that when we replace the person in the library. There is an option there where we could possibly fill that with somebody that could do an hour or 2 of language arts. So we'd be adding a couple sections without adding staff. So I think that's a good possibility. But again, you know, work with whoever takes our spot and see what they think about that. So otherwise, facility-wise, really good shape, obviously. Through all that, we'll be adding some good storage, needed storage. So anxious to get moved. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hello. How's everyone? Good. We're doing well over on the north side of town. For staff, I don't think that we have too many needs. I would like to see us replace the position of that Sue had, the part-time AD position. Everything's gone okay this year, but with some of the changes that are coming for next year, I think that probably will be a need that we need to look at. It's not a huge stipend, so I think it was what, $3,200 or something like that. I mean, it's not horrible. And we'll probably need someone that can call subs with some of the reconfiguring that we're doing. So that's one of the needs. I haven't talked to Jamie in depth. We talked briefly, Jamie Engelbrecht, sorry, a week or so ago, and I think I might have some kiddos coming up that might need some extra support. So we might have some needs there. But she would be the better one to be able to explain what those are. As far as non-personnel needs, I don't know how many of you have been in the gym lately, but the divider on the stage is starting to really deteriorate, and we're going to have to look at it soon, I think. I've noticed this year particularly, it looks like there's getting some buckles in it, and it had some damage back, gosh, I think Tucker was in middle school, and he's 23, with some baseball teams practicing in there and batting balls up against it and things like that. So, I mean, there have been other things, but right now it's looking like it's starting to kind of buckle. So that's probably something. The mats on the stage are the ones that Community Bank donated, or that fund that the dollar, I don't know, the checking account fund. They're starting to get splits in them, so it's probably about time to look at that. I know that we need ceiling tiles, and I know we need chairs, student chairs. Elementary has student chairs, but they're on wheels. I don't really think I want to put a bunch of middle school kids on wheeled chairs. Or middle school teachers, that might be the bigger, no, they're really good. But those are really all of the things that I can think of right now. I know that district-wide we're going to look at a different math curriculum. I'm really excited about that. Anxious to work with Tim on getting that going. We're starting a pilot at the middle school. Actually, the teachers have already started it. Lisa Hartley is in Crystal Brown's class today, using some of the components of it. And there are probably going to be needs of being able to reproduce paper pencil type sheets or get a consumable type book.
And I don't know really what that looks like, but I'm excited. It's actually an extension of what the elementary uses. It's Zern. We tried Eureka Math years, I don't know how long ago it's been, probably we used it for a span of time. Once the Common Core came out, it was a train wreck. It wasn't built well at the time, but they have done a lot of listening to the people using it and taking feedback and making it better and making it better and making it better, and to fit a middle school time frame, because we don't have a block of time, big block, half a day, whatever. We have a 50-minute time frame, and it didn't fit that. And so they have worked diligently, and so Zern now has the 6th, 7th grade component, and hopefully next year they'll have the 8th grade component. And we get the pilot for a year and a half, so that's huge. So when COVID might not be so prevalent, we can really dive in and see how that's going to work. And I don't know if you wanted those kinds of needs or not, but I don't really have personnel needs to speak of. Math has been a concern. Research shows us that kids start showing gaps in math in 4th grade, and then it just compounds because math is hard and it's abstract, and we need something that will help the teacher as much as possible align the standard, give them the support materials and things like that so that they can do the meaty part, which is get with the kids and work with them and analyze the data to see where kids are and be able to pull easily what they need to help kids be successful. So that's all I can think of.
I thought we had discussed replacing the part-time AD this year. We didn't do that?
We did not do that.
We did discuss it, though.
But it didn't go.
Okay.
It didn't go.
Okay, I didn't realize that it didn't actually happen this year.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
So, and Thank you. It's been okay. It's been okay.
Do you have students that show interest in a VOAG area at that age?
We have ag.
Sorry, a more prevalent, a stronger source of it, not just a part-time person that...
I don't think we have the numbers to support it, if
that's
that's what you're asking me.
That's what I was wondering. Perfect.
Actually, we might even take one of those away.
That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
This year. When you have band and choir, and if you take band or choir, you definitely can't take that. The numbers split too much probably. But if we did have interest, I don't know where I'd put them because I don't really have a classroom.
That's why I was asking if there was interest.
Yeah.
That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Have a blessed day and thanks.
No Chiefs, right?
Oh, don't you jinx them, Merle.
You tried last week.
I always go against them. I always I poor mouth them. Then they win. So I feel good.
Don't let him pull you in social activities. Just don't let him do that.
Yes. Bad luck.
All right.
Oh, hold on. You still got to deal with me.
Okay.
So district needs assessment of things that kind of fall under my category. A little bit of all the principals touched on everything that I'm going to bring up. I just wanted to give you a little bit more in depth on it. State of Missouri has been transitioning away from what we call implementers for a couple years now. That comes into place in the 22-23 school year. What that means is, I'll use speech language for an example. If we have a child with a speech issue in elementary, in the past you were able to use what is an implementer to help them. The reason for that is a speech therapist can make 5-6 times what they can in a school. So why would you spend the money to get a master's degree and come work in a school? They acknowledge the fact that the state acknowledged the fact that they know that, so that's why they let us use implementers. The state has also said now there are enough SLPs, speech language pathologists, in the state of Missouri that every school should be able to find them. However, those people still are not applying for jobs that pay what schools pay them. So will they extend this? Boy, I hope so. At the same time, we did have an opportunity, and I believe it'll be on our closed session to hire her this month. We had an opportunity of a
Like a new building and stuff. Greenhouses.
Solid addition.
Yes.
So we did have a chance to hire a speech-language pathologist assistant this year. That's one of the positions you'll see that's just open year-round for us, hoping somebody applies. So we will hire that. So that will move one of those implementers. This has been a conversation that was in place way before I was here. They said, hey, the people that are currently doing it have been aware for years. Eventually, I'm going to have to go do something else within the district. The district has made the promise because they're valued employees to us. We'll take care of you. We don't know what it's going to look like right now. So as we have attrition or movement through in the elementary, one of them will be moved into a classroom next year. Those conversations have been taking place for years. It's just that movement's going to happen. That means we will still need one more. Could happen next month if somebody applies for a job, or could happen within the next 2 years. But that's just one of the things that we have to, I just want you guys to be aware of and know that is taking place. New vision therapist. We do, here in St. James, we've had a vision therapist that was the same lady for years. She decided to move out of the area. We are outsourcing right now, currently with a lady out of Kansas City. Obviously, it is virtual is the best option to do that at this point, so we don't have to pay the mileage to get her here to visit our kids. Works out perfect right now because of COVID times. Most people would like to meet virtually anyway. That is something you'll see that Shannon and I actually discussed today. We're going to get posted. Hopefully we can find somebody local down the road. But right now it is somebody that's out of the Kansas City area that's helping us with those needs. We currently only have one student in the district that needs that. But we want to make sure we can give that one student the best that they can get. Wish list item for me, this would be something down the road, I think, but I would like to just use the word school-based social worker. I think as we see more social and emotional issues out of students, this could be a great resource for our district in helping students find those. As we see more and more need for homeless and students that are struggling, I think that could be a good resource for us too. I don't know that that's something financially we look at right now, but I do think our community could benefit from starting to have the conversation of that position.
So I have a question. How are situations like that handled now?
So anything depends. Obviously, the first stop is the building counselor. Anything beyond that actually comes to me. So right now, first stop's building counselor, second stop is me, and we try and find the resources that we can.
We have contracted out with the outside.
That's
No-
true.
no
So that
cost to us. Just
this year we were able to get Compass. So 2 days a week. They're gonna 2 days a week.
And it's, all
They're
it is
gonna
is a
start.
memorandum of understanding. It's no money.
Yep.
So it doesn't cost us anything. So what is it? It's just an outsourced, just counseling. They come in, it's with high need students that have documented issues, and they have to work it out with parents.
So when I think of social worker, I think of the state provides quite a bit there in Great Circle, which we already have. That's what I'm thinking when I think of social worker. Am I off base there? What are you thinking?
I think you might be referencing something different with Great Circle. So,
Well, I think of the state as well.
okay.
I think of both of them.
So previous school I was at had a social worker. So most of her time is spent at the elementary because you're just going to find more high needs kids that can't find the help at that age. What they do is, say a counselor identifies a student that's in high need, meets they're just not getting fed, maybe they don't have clothes, they need a coat, they don't have heat at home. They look for resources for kids. So essentially they're an extended resource to find help for a kid that needs help.
And you feel like right now there's a justifiable case for a full-time person dedicated to those things?
I think with some of the stuff we're seeing with COVID and some of the social emotional stuff they're talking about, we could get there in a hurry. I do.
We'd love Barb to give us more insight.
Tim, if you'd get out of the way so Barb can talk, we'd appreciate that.
Sorry, guys. So, Tim did a really good job, Mr. Webster did a really good job of explaining the difference in the social worker. If you go to a large district, they're going to have multiple layers of help. So the school counselor, the school psychologist, the school therapist, the school social worker. So this is something that we're already seeing, like in the bigger school districts. For our kids right now, we have such a high need of resources. Nikki and I spend a lot of our time, and I know the other girls do too, just searching for resources. We work with the Caring Center, we're online, and that's the piece that a social worker would take. Like Tim says, we have a student who is having family issues and maybe they've been displaced. We would work with that student to make sure their educational needs are met. The social worker would then take over their physical needs, making sure that they have food and getting them connected to the right resources there. And then the school-based therapist that Merlin talked about is for those students who have mental health needs that are beyond what Nikki and I are trained to deal with. So we might have a student come in who is dealing with suicidal ideation, and yes, we can do the suicide assessment and send them for referral to the ER or wherever we need to send them. But now with a school-based therapist, we can refer them to the school-based therapist who's in the building and get them more direct contact. In addition to that, they provide ongoing therapy, so our kids have access to that therapist on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis to get the long-term therapy that they need, that without it being a burden to their family. A lot of these kids, their parents can't leave work to take them to therapy, or they don't have a car, or they don't have the resources to get there, so this is another way of providing that. So the social worker is just an added layer to that. It kind of is a division of the task, and so it would allow the school counselors to do what our focus would be on the educational needs, which is primarily what we try to deal with. We're kind of a first responder to emotional social needs, and then we focus on the educational. But right now, that's not the case. Because the needs are so high, we're actually being taken more into the social emotional stuff and having less time to focus on the other pieces of it. Does that help clarify?
Yes.
One kind of silver lining we would have too, since we do service ECSC students, so early childhood special ed students, that is currently one of the few things in education that are still 100% funded through the government. So whatever percentage of that employee's time that is working with those students would be 100% reimbursable. So if you break our district into fours, early childhood, elementary, middle, high, if they were working there 25% of the time, 25% of their salary could be reimbursed at 100%. So that would have to be something we'd look at too, is what percentage of their time could be used working with those students.
Any more questions or comments? Okay.
Thank you, Tim.
On to the mileage rate.
Something like that,
I-
the mileage rate.
Let's go. So, I guess we need a motion and a second to discuss. So does someone want to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay. So Merlin, do you want to?
It's the IRS. We always go with what they do, and the rate is it's actually going to be a decrease of 1.5 cents from last year. So.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on to the superintendent's report.
All right, the preschool immunization report comes out later. We did have one student who at the time of this report wasn't compliant, but is now compliant, so it's all good now. So the nurses did a good job with that. Any questions on that? Just a procedure every year. Financial report, just going quickly to the big numbers. As far as the revenues, you're going to see a big difference in revenues from last year to this year, but you got to remember the $8 million from the bond issue was in last year's numbers. That skews those numbers. But we are on track and where we need to be. And then on the expenses, once again, on the opposite side, things are different. The numbers are transposed there. We have spent a lot of extra money that we weren't planning on spending for COVID, which we will be getting reimbursed for that. And also on this end, the $12 million, actually part of the $4 million and all of the $8 million is on that for expenses because we've been spending a ton of money on our construction projects. So when we get out of the construction business, it's going to be better to look at the numbers one of these days. So looking forward to that.
Sweet, we can go over it next year.
Yes, but we are in good shape. And Susan and I looked over the numbers not too long ago, and we feel very confident that we're going to have a good end-of-year balances, considering everything we've gone through. The billing level report. So, Mr. Webster.
As you guys can see there, student attendance rates are very good with consideration of everything that's going on in the world right now. So we are getting the most out of the students while we do have them here, which right now in COVID times, I think that is very important. It's always very important, but now more so than ever. Kind of like I told you guys last month, I wanted to start comparing our attendance rate for staff due to maybe other sickness compared to COVID. You can see COVID is taking its toll on our staff by the attendance rate, and you can see that our teachers are knowing the importance of being here, non-COVID related, because our staff attendance is phenomenal. Take away COVID, to be honest with you. Something I think is important, good things going on. I wanted to make sure every month that I recognize these people. Certified staff for the Leading the Tiger Way award was Katie Moreland, Beth Setzer, and Terrell Story. Our classified winners this past month were Josh Carroll, Cheryl McCall, Tishron, and Shay McFarland. Kind of just summing up is what I'm kind of making this report of, so I don't have to go through each building. All of our buildings are currently working on spring testing dates. This past Tuesday, Dr. Johnson and I actually had an opportunity to go to Jeff City and meet with Margie Van Deven, head of education in the state of Missouri. She seemed, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, she was still very adamant that we will test. My personal opinions, all we're going to do is talk about how we need to be in school and how kids are going to be behind. Now we're going to take 2 weeks of instruction away and give them a test that they tell us isn't going to mean anything. So I'm very passionately against that. However, I don't get a say. So they are still very adamant that we will test.
Do you know why they're so adamant about this? Because to me it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. Her selling points was she was pretty upfront. Too late. She said, we understand this is broken. We can't make a change this quick, so you're going to do it. Give us 3 years, we'll make a change and help you out.
And also, you can, unfortunately, we don't like this, but it's even across the board, there will be district-to-district comparisons.
Yeah.
And the problem is and they discussed this, is that the impoverished communities are going to see more dramatic negative scores, whereas we might not see it as bad.
Another discussion is how do you get a virtual kid to come in to take the test? They have said they will make no exceptions for that. You are required to still get those kids in. So we're going to have to be creative in doing that. It is our job to educate kids. We got to make sure all kids are being educated, so we will do our best possible at doing that. We have made it a priority with all 3 building principals. We're going to celebrate the good out of this. We're going to look at what our kids are learning. We're not going to look at, there's plenty of negatives, but we're not going to take that route. We're going to look at the positives, and I think our buildings are doing a really good job at that. You can see in Dan's report grade level progress. That is absolutely fits in with what I'm saying. Our kids are still learning. They're still doing great things. Extra. One of the things that was in our CSIP earlier this year was to make sure that we get a trauma-informed schools training. That could be very important this year with all the mental and social emotional stuff going on with students and staff. So we will fit that into our February PD where all 3 buildings will have an opportunity to get that training. Just wanted to keep you guys in the loop on that. And that's all I got.
Okay, any questions for Tim? Okay, moving on. We have Wes. Are you out there, Wes? The facility report. If he's not, I can go ahead and skip to the MSBA. There he is.
So, do you guys see the roof? Okay, so you guys asked me to get this together, so I had Trimco, a representative from them, come and look. And as you can, I won't go through all of it, but basically, as you can see, they agree we need some work. And they're estimating between $18 to $24 a square, which I broke out some of that, just the math. If you're talking just the high school gym, let's say, that's 10,000 square feet. So that's going to be anywhere from 180 to 240,000 to just do the gym. There's 50,000, it's 48,000 square feet at the high school. That still is the Armor Light, the white stuff that they're talking about. So that would be anywhere from 864 to 1,152,000 to do the high school. The bad area at the elementary is about 20,000 square feet, which would be 360 to 480. But total over there, we got 55,000 square feet over there. So you're talking another same 990 to 1.3 million for the elementary if you wanted to replace it all. And these are just estimates. They said they hope actual bids would come in less. Of course, everyone always does, right? So, and that would be the complete tear off of the membrane, the insulation, get down to decking so we can really check the decking, which is what the engineers from over summer, that was the issue. You know, we need to get down to deck to see what's wrong. But that's why it's estimated. So
the estimate that you have here, is that replacing the decking or is that just a new?
So it would be that they didn't tell me exactly how much decking, but that would be a spot decking as it's replaced as needed. So that's why it's an estimate. I mean, they don't really know. It could be, the high school, it could be more. But from what when we did over the library, there was only like 4 sheets that was bad. But I know in the other part of the high school, that's where all the cuts were. It's going to be significantly more. So it is just an estimate. I'm going to guess over at the elementary, we probably won't have much decking needs replaced. And I'm going to guess high school, we're going to need a lot of decking replaced. So that's going to float in there somewhere. And in my personal opinion, the second option, if I can find it, I think that was it, is a roof that we have in some of our areas, and it doesn't give us problems. It's the gravel flood. I think that's what, I don't want to say wrong. The gravel build-up roof. We have some of those roofs now, and zero issues since I've worked here. So, the
gravel roofs are the best.
That, I mean, this fluid applied system, I don't know. They say it's better, but from what I've noticed around here, that gravel flood, we don't have issues. So, because what you basically, the heat of the rocks melts the, so basically it's like a self-healing that's how I view it. It warms up and it retars itself as the holes happen. Huh? It's the middle of the road. So,
but it's the labor. It's the labor of getting the rock up there.
Yeah, that's why it's more expensive. Yeah, it's the actual labor of applying it. So.
You use like a pump truck and pump it up there.
I know they did when they did it 10 years ago when I was first starting, they were basically using like a shingle lift, and they were dumping. That's how they did it 10 years ago. I'm sure there's other ways, but that would probably be however the certain contractors just want to do it. So I don't know if you guys want me to get real bids. Do you want me to break it out on what I see is the highest need? I guess I need some. Is the budget going to be there?
Wes, I had a question. I was reading the thing on the elementary side where it says, I may believe we may buy some time by implementing repairs and aggressive preventive maintenance program. Like what are you talking about with preventive maintenance?
So they're saying that on some of that elementary, which I do agree with them, we don't have a whole lot of problems. So the smaller areas. So the metal roof, it expands and contracts, right? But over some of the smaller classrooms, this roofing system's fine because it's smaller area, so it's not moving around as much. So they're saying, well, the maintenance they are suggesting is just we redo all the seams and leave that roof alone. And I would agree that we don't have a lot of problem. Like over the 4th and 5th grade area, it's not as bad. But over that whole center library section, it's terrible because it's such a large area. So that's why at the elementary we don't necessarily need to do all of it. Over the cafeteria at the elementary, it's got the same roof on it. Well, we got one row that's bad. Everything else, I've never seen a leak there at all. So they're just saying they would suggest that actually we sign up something with them maybe where they would basically take over our seams and they would be responsible for them, and they would come and they would make them not leak in those areas. But they're saying that they only want to do that in the areas that aren't an issue because they know that in them big areas they don't want to guarantee those big areas not to leak. So they're saying that you don't need to do the whole elementary is what they're getting at, and I agree with them because the entire elementary is not bad. It is the center now, but they're saying at the high school it's pretty bad, and the reason the high school is that way is just cut up so much, and it's such a large area. You got all these expanding and contraction of the metal, and it's just not working out good. So that's what they're saying there. And so I would agree that there's other options at the elementary. We need about 20,000 square feet over there that needs done. That would be pretty high on my list. So that answer your question? Okay.
So at this point, are we just the warranty? It's not even worrying about that anymore. We're
well, I still have those guys on. They're supposed to be coming right now. They've got material ordered and they're coming sometime. But that's always the answer I get. They're coming sometime.
So I guess is this the only bid we got? And then could we just break it down like what needs to be done first and just kind of do it in like three different?
So this isn't really a bid. This is the roof manufacturer. This is just one roof manufacturer, and they got some numbers. They actually, Stiles Roofing is the contractor that did another school, Mansfield, I think, that they actually did this. They tore off this exact roof, and they were using those numbers on what it cost them for their project to estimate what it would cost us for our project. And so this is just one roof manufacturer just helping out, saying this is about what for a general budget. So we would still need to, what needs to be done? And most of the high school needs to be done, and they agree with what they're finding here. So I can get other manufacturers to come and give their opinions. It probably, Trimco is somebody that is suggested by the other districts in the in Missouri. So
I mean, I think other like bids are always good. However, we want to go with somebody who's reliable and trustworthy. So I don't know if other school districts use them and they've had success. Then
yeah, I mean, so they would be part of one of them buy board groups, where we wouldn't have to, for the manufacturer, we wouldn't have to go anywhere. They're guaranteed through different buying options that we would have. But when we actually go to get bids from contractors to apply their proven roofing system,
Gotcha.
that's where that would matter.
Okay.
But I would need to know, yes, you have a budget of this to go fix, and that's what we probably need to establish is how much money do you all want to spend on roofs, and then I'd have to go into breaking down what I feel is the worst, and because if we said, oh yeah, we only want to do 5,000 this year, 5,000 square feet this year, well then the price is going to be $30 a square foot. It's not going to be, so that at all we would need to decide how much money we want to spend. I mean, based on it's going to be 2.5 at the worst case. Worst case from this, it's $2.5 million would be to do it all. But that's taking out the maintenance option, and that's taking all that. So I mean, that's.
So versus putting a roof on an old gym, why not build a new gym with a new roof?
I don't have that answer.
On a lease purchase. If we're going to talk about doing lease purchases.
Well, we need to probably recover from all this first.
I would agree, but
that's not a bad point.
But what I'm saying is, if I understand you're done with the warranty, but if maybe these guys do show up, or maybe they don't, and we do some patchwork ourselves, I don't want to hang a chandelier in a haunted house. I'd rather see if we can't do something long term.
So
as a building project.
This to me is the long term. If we're going to use those facilities, we need to consider replacing that roof membrane on top, because it needs to start in your roof. But it still is a 1968 gym. If you go spending 180 to 240,000 on the gym, it's still a gym that was built in 1968. So I understand that
we like to
argument
go 100
too.
years before we switch out.
Yeah. So I mean,
so we still got time.
And I guess that's what that it's a short-term need probably for certain areas, but it's a long-term decision, because yes, I mean, you gotta, what do you want the future of those facilities to be? And that's what someone's got to decide.
I liked your recommendation earlier that you just proposed to us. These are the things that need it. These are the places that need immediate addressing.
Yes.
And go from there.
That wasn't Wes. That was the.
Well, there
are some immediate needs. I mean, but the problem is the immediate needs at the high school are a lot of the high school. So.
I feel like
It
though
is
we
the high
just
school.
keep talking about the roof. But
Yeah.
we don't ever do anything. So I feel like I don't want to lose momentum on this. Yeah, like I would like to make some sort of
in
action item.
our elementary principal just told us when it rains in his building.
Mm-hmm.
So
In his library.
I mean, we can say a majority of it's a high school, and that's great, but obviously that's an issue.
Yeah, and that's part of the 20,000 square
what
feet
we
at
really need to do is come
to me, those are pretty equal. A lot of the high school, I mean, a lot of the high school needs to be replaced, and that 20,000 square feet in that elementary, that's 70,000 square feet, that's.
We feasibly cannot immediately start a new building project. So what we need to do, I don't know, Wes and I can handle it health-wise, right? But what we need to do, I think, is have break this thing up, and if it does raise the cost per, if you piecemeal it, I mean, we can't do the 1.2 or the 2 point, whatever it is, the millions. I can plan so that we can start making improvements at our high leak areas, so.
I can come up with a plan. I'll talk with the principals. I mean, I can, it won't take long. I mean, we can do 20,000 square feet over there and 20,000 at the high school, and I can get you the this is what I feel we really need to do, and then, but I just want, that's where the budget we're looking at, we're talking pretty big dollars. So, and they do.
Yeah, somebody wanted.
So, these numbers do align with, we had Brandco get us numbers, and whenever all the deck, over summer, when it was like $1 million with, the numbers are aligning with what others are saying. So, that's why it's just like, well, I don't need to continue on until we're ready to throw a budget so we can really hone in on what we need to do. So that's roofs. Any other question on roofs? Okay. That performance services, the air quality test that was done a couple of months ago, those guys are still, that's not a dead issue. They're still trying to find money, I guess we could say. How those types of businesses work, they try to figure out where they could save us money, and they're trying to put a project together to, if we wanted better air quality, well, then they're going to try to also change out all of our light bulbs into LED so we can see a savings in our utility bill. So I just wanted you guys to know they're still gathering data and trying to find the money for their project. Anything else? Any questions on that?
This makes me nervous.
It's on his lap. We're good.
All right. Thank you, Wes.
Okay, thanks, Justin.
Yeah, that makes us feel better.
Problem solved.
So moving on to MSBA report, state assessments, as Tim already said, that they will be happening in the spring. But no state used against us due to COVID. And we know COVID will be having an impact on testing. The regular session of 2021 started up. And they did mention school board election dates, candidate filing closed Tuesday. And then the legislative priorities this year are safe education environment, school funding for resources, quality preschool programs, preschool through K programs, and then broadband internet access. That's a big issue right now with all the virtual learning. Also, School Board Recognition Week is the week of February 14th through 20th, so we will be recognizing you the first part of February. As far as the legislative session goes, the school reform is real. It is because of everything that's happening right now. Things are moving fast and in the wrong direction for the things that we do in many cases. So there's tons of topics on the agenda. Virtual instruction and expansion is one of many bills that are going to be out there. You're going to hear about them. Charter school expansion is very big. Mandatory reading intervention with no funding. Telling us we're going to have to do more, spend more money, and no extra funding. Also, there's another bill, and this is a big one. You're going to hear about this one. It's State Bill 55, which is the Msba homeschool bill. And that one is probably going to happen where right now we have requirements where kids, if they, to be able to play sports through Msba, you have to have so many seat hours in the school. And that is probably going to be removed. And so homeschool students will legally be able to say they can play. And then you get into all kinds of different issues with if they don't make the team, then that's going to be some sort of discrimination and things like that. So when I leave today here, I will be calling Jason Chipman about these things because they rolled a bunch of these bills all into one today. It happened this morning. They started.
You do know his kids are homeschooled, right?
Yes. Yes, but he represents us, so he needs to hear. And I think he's going to get bombarded with a bunch of phone calls. So it's very important. The Msba thing is going in the wrong direction. So there's lots of concerns out there, and we're going to be very active in the lobbying world this year. So I do.
Does MSBA have a lobbyist? Do they pay?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Kay McMurtry is our lobbyist. We pay her through Massa.
Okay.
And so she provided this information to me.
Gotcha.
And she actually sent me a text actually just right before the board meeting, and I'll read that to you from Kay. That
do they provide anything scripted that we can just copy and paste?
Yes, I have that. I can forward that to you.
Perfect, thank you.
So she sent this to me today. Says we need to call our senators about the charter school expansion, the voucher tax credits, which people can get paid money, tax money that goes to school districts to send their kids wherever they want to go. Virtual, the Msba homeschool, all these rolled up into one bill. And she's like, you need to call your representatives immediately. So that's what I'm going to be doing when this meeting's over for me. So we'll be working on that. I do want to make a note that they did discuss the Esser Funds, which we already got our first relief money, back in the summer. But there is discussion of a much larger amount coming. We don't know exactly how much, but they're talking almost 4 times, which is going to be a lot of money for schools everywhere. We don't know a date. We don't know a time, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. But it goes at any time, the feds or anybody, the state could pull the carpet out from under us. So, but there is some very positive talk about extra relief money due to COVID and all the things that we've been dealing with to run a school district. So I'm very excited about that, about the possibilities. But I'm not going to get too excited about how much and when, because we don't know that information yet. So we had the head guy at DESE Finance, Kerry Monses, was able to explain that to us Tuesday at the meeting. So all good stuff, but it's we got to stay on top of it with our representatives. So any questions about legislative stuff? And I'm going to be, I know Carl was very big legislatively, and if anyone wants to take on that role, that's great, but I'm going to be very involved in that as well, so you're not going to be left out, and I'll send that information to you. It's an email, it's a bulletin. I get a legislative bulletin summary every 2 weeks or so, and I'll send that to you. So
Senator Brown and Raleigh would also be a good one, John.
Senator Brown is awesome.
Because he's an education-minded guy.
Yes. So last thing here is they already mentioned, the filing ended for board members on Tuesday, and we have 2 openings this year, and we have 2 people that filed, so it worked out. And so our 2 incumbents, Tim Wilson and Justin Seibert, filed, and so there will not be an election, and that saves the district money, so it's a very good thing. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Justin.
Congratulations.
Save money on campaign posters.
Okay, need a motion to go to closed session.
Second.
Raise your hand, Justin.
Tim's what?